Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 55 of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, with Rabbi Stuart, the man Federow from Houston, Texas. Welcome back, my friend. How the heck are you?
Welcome to you too, and it's good to be here.
Yay. Finger dance. Can't start without...
I can't hear it.
Oh, I've got it on the wrong one, I guess. Okay.
Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter.
I realize
I'll finger dance anyway.
Hey, your timing was quite nice, actually, so not too shabby. All right. Wow. Let me go ahead and pause that, and I'll have the phone lines open up here momentarily. So basically, I'm trying to, as I'm telling everybody on each show, I'm trying to get YouTube Live back up and going. I think it's working. I'm not sure. So I guess we will find out. It worked on the last two shows. Let me check something real fast. Hey, Chris. Sorry, I had to yell across the room so my wife could hear me. It'll only work if my signal strength is really strong like what it should be, which is like between 6 and 10 upload speed. And so as long as I've got that, it should upload to both places without any flaws. So we will see. So tonight's episode is called "Is the New Testament a Parasite to the Old Testament?" And the thought came about as I was listening to people talk. And even when I'm listening to some Christian friends of mine actually talk and express themselves, when they refer to the Old Testament, when they refer to one thing or the other, I notice that there is an assumption that I want to address tonight. And the assumption is they think that the Old Testament, or excuse me, the Hebrew Scriptures, aka Old Testament, and the New Testament actually belong together. And so...
Well, they're published that way, so why not?
They were certainly stitched together that way. So that's kind of what I'm going to go over tonight, because of that, because it's stitched together in the same book, many people assume just because of that alone is proof enough that it belongs together and that it's supportive of each other. And that couldn't be further from the truth, which is what we want to touch on tonight. I want to just go over different aspects of how that's not what most people think. I want to go over the gap between Malachi and Matthew, and why there was a gap. All the Jews.
Wait a minute. Wait. What are you talking about? There's only one page. You just turn page from Malachi and go straight.
Yeah.
I'm in a mood tonight.
You
let
are,
me tell you.
Man. You're going to get me fired. Wait. Oh, never mind. I'd have to fire myself. Okay, forget that. Forget I said that. So.
You're fired up.
That is true. I am fired up. Okay, so with that said, I think it's just a good thing for people to know. I saw a guy who was commenting on the last video with Rabbi Skovak and I, and he was asking a friend of his, or actually someone, I'm assuming someone he knew, if this Rabbi Skovak was actually a follower of Yeshua, and she said certainly not. And he came back and said, well, why are you listening to this rabbi then? Right? And so there's just such a weird. It's not really weird, it's normal, but there's so many things that the Christian world really have no clue about. So many people have never even heard of a counter-missionary. They've never even heard that the New Testament is even wrong, or it could be wrong. They just assume that, well, I've got questions. Sure I do, but everybody in the world's got questions, but they still believe in Jesus. They don't know that people who have questioned and actually researched these answers, most cases have actually left the New Testament because of it. They don't know this, Some of my friends, when I meet them and I tell them I used to be Christian, they look at me like, "Oh my God!" like a teenager getting pregnant or something. I'm like, the thing is, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. In fact, my Facebook page alone is I've got over 100 Facebook friends who have left Christianity, not because of sitting in the back corner, but because of studying. Whether they were preachers, there were some Messianic rabbis, there were a lot of preachers' kids. I was a preacher's kid and a preacher technically. So, but the Christian world really doesn't know this as a whole. Some of them think that there really isn't an original language to the Hebrew Bible. Some think there are multiple languages, and Hebrew is only one of them.
The quick answer to that is the King James English.
Explain.
Is the original language of the Hebrew Bible.
To many it is.
I'm
Or
really in a
1611, it had to be 1611, right? So with that said, hello everybody. Hello Andrea, Delane, Mitzvahs, Cincy Litigator. Okay, good. I'll make sure I'm getting that right. It's good to see you guys on there.
I've heard of an alligator, but not a litigator.
Hey, nice person there. So for all you people, I'm leaving the YouTube chat off because YouTube apparently has a side window where you can watch the chat as it actually happened, as it's recorded with the video. So I don't have to go through all that trouble of uploading all these boxes and things. So Michael, welcome. Carly,
Hi Michael.
Joshua.
Hi Carla. Hi Joshua.
All right. So I think this is
Bluesman.
George Anthony Hall. Hello, sir. So this will be a good recording to put out there. Just because
George, I agree.
My title that I chose for tonight is the New Testament a Parasite to the Old Testament. It's going to seem offensive right off the bat to everybody.
That is the grossest picture I have ever seen of that
it's a leech.
Thing clinging to the guy's arm or skin or whatever.
It's a leech, but it is a perfect example.
Ew.
Okay, so maybe I'll pick a. Well, to me, any kind of a parasite looks gross.
Hi, Don.
A lot of people are used to survival shows and they know what a leech is. So I didn't think that would be that big of a deal. So if that's offensive to anybody who's watching that, actually they won't see it during the show. They'll only see it when they click on the icon. So. But anyway, so that's where we're going. That's the whole point of tonight, and I want to make sure we cover as much as we can. The phone lines are actually open right now. 855-95-BIBLE. That's 855-952-4253. I'll put that on your screen. Feel free to call in with your question or comment, if you will. You may have a comment you want us to discuss regarding this particular topic, and I would love to hear it. So feel free to call in. If you just want to call in and say hi, that's fine too. So with that said, we will kick this thing off. So Rabbi, first of all, real quick, in 30 seconds or less, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Still can't shake my cough, no matter what I do, since like September in the Harvey the hurricane season.
Oh wow! You might want to go check that out just to be sure.
I have.
Oh, really?
I've been on antibiotics repeatedly. It's just,
wow.
At any rate, so
I just realized I got my dirty work hat on. That's okay.
Yeah, it looks fine.
I'm having David go get my other hat. I don't like looking at that dirty old thing. It's kind of handy though.
The first thing that
got the light on it. Yay.
Strikes me about your question is the New Testament a parasite to the Old Testament?
Yes.
I mean, what is a parasite? A parasite is a different animal who grabs a hold of and clings to an animal different from itself,
and uses it to survive
and relies upon it for nutrition.
Right. Which means it makes sense to me that it's a parasite, because without the Hebrew scriptures, the New Testament wouldn't exist. It's the only thing that keeps it alive is its claim that it's fulfilling prophecy. So thank you, David. You're a good man. I don't care what I told. Never mind. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. I never talk bad about myself. He's such a good little tzaddik. Okay. So that's where we're at. Anybody want to strike the first match on the YouTube chat or call? Oh, hold on.
Let me.
Somebody may have already been trying to call. I didn't realize there was a download box for the Ring Central, and I just had to ignore it. So now the phone lines will be able to ring. Go ahead.
Andrea, I've been on prednisone. I've had, you name it, I've done it. All right, but let me say something about the topic, okay? Whenever I speak about Judaism or anything related, I always use a term that has a very specific meaning, which is the Bible. It's in the Bible, it says this. It's in the Bible, it says that. The Bible says this. The Bible says that. Jews, hundreds of years before Jesus was born, was calling the Bible ta Biblia, which means the book, the Bible. And so we Jews have been calling our Bible the Bible long before Christianity came up with their appendix to the Bible, which is the New Testament that they tacked on to the Hebrew Scriptures. And if the first concept of parasite is something of one species that grabs a hold of another species. You took yourself off the front page.
I did because I was changing my hat.
Oh, okay.
I'll put us back up now.
Thank you.
You're like my cat. You do not like being alone.
I don't like being all alone.
That's okay.
All right, at any rate, it's one species that latches a hold of another species and sucks it dry for nutrition because it can't produce nutrition on its own.
Okay.
And that's what they did with our Hebrew scriptures, is they started publishing their New Testament as part of what they call the Bible, which is our word, okay, for our scriptures. And that alone makes the New Testament a parasite to the Hebrew scriptures. That alone does that.
Right.
And then the next level that they do that on is that they'll take our Hebrew scriptures and Christologize it. They'll start interpreting it in a way that makes it sound like it's really talking about their Jesus through mistranslation, misinterpretation, misrepresentation, taking a line out of context, all the usual ways that everybody knows about.
Right.
So that alone also tells you why the New Testament is a parasite to the Hebrew scriptures. Okay, there's another element to it too, I think, and that is not necessarily, well, let me put it this way. A group that has a well that continually goes dry has to go to another well that they can rely on for water. And that's continually what Christianity does to Judaism. I know we got a call. Let's take it.
Okay. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, it's Stephen Roth from Brooklyn again. How are you?
Hey, Stephen. How are you, man?
Hi.
Hi, how are you, Rabbi? How are you? Happy post-Purim.
Thank God. How are you?
Yeah, so before we start, I just want to just tell you a quick joke. You know, Rabbi Singer has his Mormon joke. I have a better joke. So anyway, there's this Hasidic Jew who's crying about the fact that his son went to the other side, and he asked the Rebbe, "Can you help me?" And the rabbi says, "I can't help you. My son did the same thing." Then they asked God, "Can you help me?" He said, "I can't help you either. My son did the same exact thing too. What do you want from me?"
Well, of course, that lends legitimacy to the idea of Christianity, that Jesus is the Son of God, and that Jesus even was a Christian. And yeah, it's cute and funny, but
I think he was a yeshiva. I think it was a yeshiva. Yeah, I think it was a yeshiva boy that just went off the deep end.
Yeah, went off the derech.
That's funny.
I just want to make a statement, not a question. I just want to just say the following: that you see the power of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, that he can get 2 billion people who are very smart to believe something that will make Bernie Madoff look honest.
Right.
That's all I got to say.
You know, that
blows my mind.
You know, that's very true, and you said it right, because the people, at least all the ones that I know, are very, very smart, and most of them are super intellectual. And so, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I was in that walk for a long time, many, many years. My family, pastors in the past, uncles, dad, grandpa, the whole 9 yards. So, and I was totally blinded by it.
All I gotta say to you and Rabbi Will, you're going to have a Mercedes that nobody can even imagine in the next world, and you'll be driving around Rabbi Singer and all the other, and Rabbi Federow. I just want to tell you, guys really give me a lot of physical, a lot of strength, and I wish you all the blessings out there. Thank you so much for this show. It gives me
thank you, and from your mouth to God's ears.
Thank you. Baruch Hashem. Amen.
God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Very cool. Very cool. Such a light. That's good. All right, cool. So do you remember where you were at? Because I don't. I know we've got a lot of
ground to cover, just to make it real quick, I was saying that, there's another element of Christianity that makes it a parasite onto Judaism, not the New Testament onto the Hebrew Scriptures, but rather Christianity as a whole, on Judaism as a whole, and that as a parasite. And that is, when the well is always dry, you keep going to the well that's always full, for for hydration, for water. And the thing about Judaism, let me rephrase that. The thing about Christianity is they continually come back to Judaism to steal from us, to be a parasite. So, for example, the whole Messianic quote-unquote Jewish or the quote-unquote Jews for Jesus or the quote-unquote Hebrew Christians or whatever they're calling themselves this week, okay, first it wasn't enough to take our Hebrew scriptures, okay, and Christologize it to make it look like it's always talking about their Jesus.
Right.
Then they had to do that with our holidays and holy days and life cycle events and rituals, okay, like we got Passover coming up, so 3 months is Trinity, whatever, okay. Now, well, it's not new, but, well, none of this is new, but it's newish, okay, because they've reinvestigated it, and that's now they're taking a look at the Talmud to show that there are passages of the Talmud that reflect the theology of Christianity, so that Christianity really isn't that foreign to quote-unquote what they call Judaism. So it's a constant, every generation, going back to the well that's always full to steal our water so that they can keep hydrated or whatever. So there's plenty of ways where the New Testament or Christianity in general becomes a parasite to the Hebrew Scriptures or to Judaism in general. And that's only barely touching the surface.
Right, gotcha. So what I want to do, right, hold on, this thing better not start playing. Okay, I need to try to edit something real fast. What I want to do is I want to do a quick timeline. It doesn't have to be like, I mean, bullnose. It just
Before we start with the timeline,
Yes.
Can I ask you a quick irrelevant question?
Sure.
You may remember that last week Grant said his mom was not feeling well. Did you ever get any information since then?
No, I haven't. I know he was
thought I'd ask.
he was watching Skovac last night.
Did he say anything?
No, there was nothing brought up then, so maybe that's all working out a little bit better.
Please God. All right.
Okay, so
You and your mom are in our prayers still this week too. Grant, if you're listening, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to do like a timeline, basically. Actually, obviously, whenever we take this caller first.
Timeline.
Callers take priority, so here we go. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hi. I feel like I'm haunting you guys, but this is Pat Milton.
Hey, Pat.
From Dallas, Texas.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
And I have always felt like I was supposed to be born Jewish, but I was born into a kind of a crazy Christian family where I was greatly mistreated. I've had prophetic dreams, things that came true. And I haven't had any lately, but I used to have them continually. And I didn't know what to do with them, so I'd just pray. Do you have any insight for me? I don't know what I'm going through, but I'm conflicted. I feel like I was supposed to be Jewish.
What
but
is
I'm
your
not.
What is your current religious belief right now? Are you a New Testament follower or are you ex-New Testament?
Christian.
You are Christian now.
Christian, because that's the only thing I knew.
Right, gotcha.
And but I've been studying Jewish things for a long time. I've supported the all Jewish. I've even bought property over there. I mean, that's rare, I know.
Can I ask you a question? You say that you've even done a lot of studying in the Hebrew Scriptures. Are you looking at the Hebrew Scriptures
constantly?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Well, my question, though, is that you've been looking at the Hebrew Scriptures, but have you been looking at the Hebrew Scriptures through only Christian eyes? In other words, are you still reading the Hebrew Scriptures as a Christian?
And I can't find anybody to teach me. I even tried to convert, but I couldn't. And they said if I didn't already have Jewish roots, forget it. You know.
That's nonsense.
So,
that's absolute
no,
nonsense.
that's because she was saying, Rabbi, hold on. It's not nonsense because
it sounds like you're talking through a strainer.
Oh, okay. Hang on one second.
I am.
Can we make that better?
Actually, so basically, Rabbi, if she's Christian and she doesn't know anything different, if she's telling them I'm Christian, I want to convert to Judaism, they're not going to let her do that.
Of course not.
That's all she was saying.
But
that's all she was saying.
But William,
okay, so even
the
though
idea,
I
excuse me, this is very important to me, and that is the idea that a person has to have Jewish ancestors to become Jewish is patently
Yeah,
No,
false.
right.
and I don't think that that's
I
what they were
don't
saying.
have that Jewish soul
Yeah.
you keep talking about.
I hear a lot of
So
stories.
it's impossible for me to do
Well,
anything
but-
about
Hold on,
it,
hold on.
right?
Let me do something because this is going to be a very difficult conversation because she can't hear you talk. We can hear
Okay.
her, but there's a lot of walking on top, like stepping on each other's conversations. So let me kind of mediate between the two of you. And so Pat, one thing's for sure is
But William,
yes,
Jews don't believe in a mediator.
right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so so Pat's her issue was, and this is what I believe. I deal with talking with people who go through conversions a lot and who want to go through conversions who can't, and I hear a lot of stories. The people who told you can't convert unless you had Jewish blood already, I think that they were just trying to make short conversation of y'all's meeting because
I see. They wanted to see how serious I was.
no, because they can't convert you if you're Christian because that's a complete violation of Tanakh. That's a whole
That's a kind of a contrast. Okay.
It's like dynamically opposed. So
Okay.
so they're them saying, well, unless you got Jewish blood, it was just a quick way to end the conversation. Otherwise, you would have kept asking and taken up more time that they're trying to baby talk and try to work around it. It's easier. Let me give you an example. When I go to a restaurant and if I'm trying to avoid any kind of pork or cross contamination, I don't tell them I'm Jewish or that I'm converting. I tell them I'm allergic to pork. I'm not allergic to pork.
Okay.
But I tell them that because it'll get the point across much better. So for you in that situation, I think they were just telling you that because there's no way they would convert you if you were a Christian. It's just easier to tell you that. It's a conversation
Well,
ender if they just tell you that and let you go.
So
on your way.
I would have to be almost like a pagan, and then I could learn. That's kind of funny.
William,
Yes.
please,
You
there's some
can
things that
convert
you've
a
got to
pagan,
relate
but
to her.
not somebody who believes in Jesus. Is that the problem?
Okay, Pat, hang on one second. Yes, it is, but I'm going to convey something to you from Rabbi Federow. Okay, actually, Rabbi, would it be better for you to let her make her point and let her hang up and listen to you on the TV?
Okay.
Would that be better? Because that way she's not hearing me repeat something back,
All right,
and
that's
everybody
fine. Go
else
ahead.
and everybody else isn't listening to that. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
Pat, do me a favor. We've got enough of context of your story to add comments about your story, but do you have a particular question that you want to ask so that we don't forget that either?
Well, I want to know why I have these dreams
Okay.
that come true.
Okay.
They're warnings, almost always warnings, but they come true.
But you
They
say that
really
hasn't
do.
happened that hasn't happened in a while, but it used to happen a lot,
Well,
right?
not since the last one came true.
Okay. How long ago was that?
No, I had some about that church. I guess it's been a couple of years.
Okay. All right. So we'll take that. Why do you have dreams and why are they coming true? Is there something maybe prophetic in your dreams possibly? We'll go over that topic altogether. Does that sound good, Pat?
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Well, thank you. And you said you have no one to teach you. Let me tell you right now, if you will subscribe to this YouTube channel, every single show that we do, most every single show we do is about Christianity versus Judaism.
Not just mine, but other
Yeah.
people too.
Right.
Well,
right.
you know, I did contact
Tell her
with,
that.
Rabbi Singer, and I was taking some of the Orthodox stuff, and I got sidetracked because of
Okay.
illness and death, and I just haven't been able to continue it.
Okay.
But I just wondered why I have this affinity
Sure.
and identification. I feel identified with the Jewish people, but
Okay.
but I have no. I don't have any way to prove.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm just.
Hey,
So
you're
you
coming
understand,
through.
right?
Yes, I do. You're coming through loud and clear, and I really appreciate you calling in and just you're a good person. Thank you so
Pouring
much
out
for
my
your
soul.
yeah. I mean, you're a kind person. And sometimes we have some Christian viewers that do call in, and they're very disgruntled because we're teaching against what they believe. And
Oh
it's,
no!
you know what I mean? And it's
well. See, you were the keepers of the law, and I have studied on the Mosaic laws. I even kind of read. I even know some of the prohibitions.
okay.
And so I don't know. I can't get it enough.
That's good. That's a good. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. So why don't we go ahead and hang up, and you can tune in, and we'll let Rabbi go
Okay.
and tell.
Thank you for talking to me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for calling back in. Bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, so first let's discuss, because she's going back to her monitor now. Let's discuss her question first, and then after that, with the dreams, I might even shape that dream a little bit, because people. Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead first.
I know people who aren't even Christian or aren't even biblically Bible followers who have dreams, who have premonition type dreams, and they come true. So it would be a mistake to say right off the bat that if you're having dreams, it's because God approves of your lifestyle, or dreams that come true, because that happens in all walks of life. So, but with that said, why do you think she may be having these? Granted, it would be better if we knew some of these dreams and what the storyline was before we could get full context. But is there a generalized answer on why she may be experiencing this?
Well, let me tell you something. There's both a religious answer and a secular answer.
Okay.
My secular answer is there are parts of the brain that science doesn't even understand yet. And there is cognition, or like five senses. There's a reason why it's called extrasensory perception. Perception that comes outside of, not a part of, our five senses. Extra, outside of, sensory, our senses, perception, perceiving outside of our normal five senses. And there's a lot to the world that we don't understand. Start over. There's a lot to existence we don't understand yet. You know, every human being is hardwired for the spiritual. Okay, we have wiring these things because there's something to see. We have wiring with this thing because there's something to say or to communicate. We have wiring for these two things, okay, and I don't mean this structure, I mean what it's covering, namely ears, because there's something to hear. So if there's wiring in the human mind of the spiritual, in the human brain for the spiritual, then there's something spiritual to be perceived. It's got to be there. But we don't always understand it. You just went off the screen again.
Okay,
the point I'm making, though, is that there's a part of the creation that we don't yet understand, and that is the spiritual side of things. Okay, I'm not sure if that was the religious or the secular answer, but it was both or one or the other or something.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not going to claim to say I know what's going on. Okay, but having said that, and his name was Pat, right?
Right.
Pat, I hope to God you're listening to me. Okay, you cannot be a Jew and a Christian at the same time. You cannot convert to Judaism while you are believing in Christianity. Okay, you can't straddle the fence. You either are or you're not. You're either a Jew or you're not. Okay, so one thing that is clearly making the rabbi or whoever it was you spoke with kind of say, hold it, back up a little bit. It's because if you are at all honest with him and you tell him your beliefs, he or she is going to have to tell you, I can't help you because you believe things like William just said 2 minutes ago. You believe things that are unbiblical at their base. Okay?
Biblical meaning from the Hebrew Scriptures, a.k.a.
When I use
Old
the word
Testament.
biblical, that's the only thing I mean.
Right.
Because the New Testament is not part of the Bible.
Right.
That's the appendix, Christian appendix to the Bible, as we were talking about earlier.
Right. Well said.
Okay. So the point is that you really need to study Judaism and the Bible, but not through Christian-colored glasses, not through the eyes of a Christian, but rather on its own. Okay? Put away all your preconceived notions. Put away all your already existing prejudgments, which is the word prejudice. Okay? Just read the text on its own. If you want to know what it means from a Jewish perspective, then you're going to have to seek out members of the Jewish community who know what they're talking about. Don't assume just because someone's Jewish that they hold Jewish values or they hold Jewish beliefs.
You know what? You just said something that made me think of something really important. You know,
What's that?
I've only known about 4 people in my life who actually who I've actually witnessed to myself. You know, back in the day, and even back then, even when I was a Christian, I would tell them I didn't buy the whole started in Matthew. I was thinking go start in the beginning, and I told them to go and start from Genesis and work your way through the Bible. That way you kind of get the full.
Matthew X, you're wrong, but go ahead.
Okay,
William.
so
Sorry to interrupt.
and what's really ironic is those 4 people, all 4 of those people, came back to me with questions saying, "Well, this doesn't make sense because the Old Testament says this, but the New Testament says this over a period of time." And I'm thinking they didn't have the pre-programming to tell them that's okay. They didn't have the pre-programming to tell them, oh, that's just foreshadows and some things can't be explained. They took it word for word if it's God's word, and it says, why does this contradict this? Even those 4 people who started from the beginning with no parents teaching them about Jesus or none of this other stuff, they came up with all these questions on their own, 100%, even though it's only 4. If it was 400, they would have all 400 said the same thing. So given that idea, it's pre-programming that gets people hung up in the New Testament and gets them so faithfully trusting it for life because they were told to do so.
I would agree with that. As I've said repeatedly on this show, we've talked about it, and that is that if a Martian landed on Earth, went into a hotel,
Right.
pulled out the Gideon Bible and started reading it from the Hebrew Scriptures from the very beginning to the end, when he got to the section called the New Testament, he'd start saying, wait, this isn't what I just read. There's something wrong with this. This contradicts what I was just reading. But if he starts with the latter part, namely the New Testament part of that book in the drawer by the Gideon Bible Society, okay, reads through the New Testament first, then goes back to the Hebrew Scriptures, he'll say, oh, okay.
Yep.
Because
absolutely.
you can only come up with Christianity if you read the Hebrew Scriptures through the eyes of Christianity. Preconceived notion, which, by the way, the New Testament even admits when it talks about the veil over the eyes of the Jewish community, that it's taken away in Christ. Well, if you have to become a believer to have it removed, it's not there inherently. You have to look at it as a Christian before you'll see it there. I mean, It's not there as a normal, natural, simple, obvious, literal part of the text. So they even admit that in their New Testament.
True. Very true.
So as long as Pat looks at the Hebrew Scriptures, but through Christian-colored glasses, okay, she's never going to solve any of this mystery of her interest in Judaism. Let me say another thing. And there are other people who've said some things that are incorrect on the chat, and that is that, okay, no rabbi would ever say to someone, I will not convert you unless you have ancestry that are Jewish, because that doesn't even make sense. Okay, that's contrary to what Judaism believes. Okay, Orthodox, every group of Judaism knows better. So I don't know who or why they would say that unless Pat got confused because they were really reacting to her being a Christian as opposed to what she was saying about,
Right.
Yeah, ancestry.
And so, also to Pat, just for clarification, this show tonight, this specific show, is designed for people who are in your shoes right now, who you're open up to Judaism, and but you really need to know the truth. The contrast, as Rabbi Federow's book I put up on your screen earlier, Judaism and Christianity is a contrast. We don't want to know how they're alike. You need to know how they're different, and that's
Exactly.
what the show is about. So stay tuned in.
Well, it's also the first step to real understanding is not to sweep the differences under the carpet and only talk about what's the same. You really want to understand somebody. You really want to understand your own.
Right.
Okay. Compare it and contrast it with somebody, not just where you're the same, but also where you're different. Okay. Matthew X makes a statement, from my knowledge, being a Jew is DNA, but Judaism is a theology. One should not conflate the two. Matthew, it's not true, because in order to become a Jew, one converts to the religion of Judaism. The process of naturalization to become a member of the Jewish people, okay, is called conversion to the religion of Judaism. So a person doesn't change their DNA by converting to start over. Does not change their DNA by becoming a Jew, by converting to Judaism. But they are, in fact, a Jew once they've converted to Judaism. 100%. No less than the high priest, as they say. So, not sure where you're getting that from, but it's not accurate. Let's see. There are some other things that people were saying that's kind of a little weird. I can't find it I wanted to talk about, but, well, be that as it may. At any rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
here it is. Wait a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
Wait a minute.
I just got word that the recording on Facebook Live is off and on. It's because of the bandwidth. At least all of it's going straight through one place, and I think Facebook is catching the overspill of all my upload speeds. So
okay.
We should have a solid recording on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook Live and it's breaking up, go to the YouTube channel. I just pasted the link in the comment section.
People were talking about prophecy. I can't find the statement.
Okay, so
too much, forget it.
That's okay. Yeah. So besides, I kind of want to keep going on the theme that we're at. How would prophecy? Actually, prophecy would fit right in here, because they're taking this prophecy or what they call prophecies.
First of all, let's talk about what is a prophet.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. I can't remember exactly how they worded it, but frankly, they worded it incorrectly. That a prophet is somebody who knows God or something. I can't remember how they worded it. What makes a prophet a prophet? A prophet is not someone who tells the future. Okay, that's a misunderstanding of what a biblical prophet is. A prophet is someone who is personally disgusted with the morality and ethics of someone or a group, and then goes to them and speaks truth to power and says to them, basically on behalf of God, that God condemns them for their actions, for what they're doing. And if they don't shape up, bad things will happen, because that's usually the natural order of their corruption. Banks that are corrupt usually wind up going out of business. Nations that are corrupt, immoral, unethical, don't have the strength to combat an enemy. So it's not telling the future, and it's not merely a relationship with God. I have a relationship with God. William has but we're not prophets. Okay. As a matter of fact, I wish we would make a little profit, but just kidding.
I was thinking we're more like non-profit, like zero profit.
Unfortunately. But a
That's
prophet
funny.
is someone who spoke truth to power, someone who would say to someone with power, like Prophet Amos speaking to King Amaziah, you're immoral, you're unethical, and God is going to get you unless you start mending your ways. Okay, that's what made a prophet a prophet. Okay, let's see. Still can't find it.
Okay, so
by definition, a prophet is someone who teaches Torah. No, that's blues band. That's not true at all. I teach Torah.
Doesn't make you a prophet.
Doesn't make me a prophet.
Maybe he's saying
all the teachers in my religious school teach Torah. Does that make them prophets?
I think is it possible maybe that Bluesman is saying that all prophets will not teach against Torah. That is fair to say.
Well, no, that would be accurate, because
Right.
if
Right.
a prophet, if somebody pretends to be a prophet and what they are preaching goes against Torah, reject them.
Right. And here's the thing too.
That's the whole thing of Deuteronomy 13.
Right.
If somebody comes to you and says, "I'm going to do a miracle," and then they actually do the miracle, but the message that they're trying to get across contradicts what you already know is revelation from God,
Yes.
kill them.
Right. And here's the thing too. Use that idea. Use Deuteronomy 13, 1 through 5, and think about this. This is perfect New Testament fitting right here. Okay? That clearly says that doing miracles is very possible without God, because people do it. Right? So if it's possible to do miracles, you can't use miracles from a New Testament as proof that God has favor upon on Christianity, because miracles aren't just found in Christianity. They're found in Judaism. They're found in Hindus. I mean, I've heard testimonies from Muslims. I mean,
William, we're about to have the story of Passover for Passover. Moses comes to the Pharaoh throws
Right.
down his staff,
Right.
and the Egyptian soothsayers or whatever, the Egyptian wise men or whatever you want to call them, do exactly the same thing.
Right.
So does that mean we're all supposed to become Egyptian believers because they're Khartoumim, they're whatever they call them, we're able to throw down a snake because, they did what Moses did, so let's follow them? No.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
Okay, the first, I think it's 3 plagues that God did against the Egyptian gods were recreated by the Egyptian magicians or whatever they were called. So miracles don't prove the message. The message has to prove the message. Or the message proves the messenger, because the message he gives has to be in consonance with what we already know is divinely revealed.
Right. Yep. So going on that same point, miracles in the New Testament.
And every time you say that, I swear, the canvas can do miracles. Just you wait and see. Sailing takes me away to where I'm going.
So
okay, fine.
You actually see in even in the New Testament, you actually see where in the Gospels, in the Gospel accounts, where they say, well, these people over here are doing signs and wonders, but they don't follow after us. I mean, so you have this idea of miracles being performed all over the place. In fact, there's even historical accounts of, I think, wasn't there even one in the New Testament with Simon Bar Jesus or something like that, where he was doing something? I don't remember. But the point is, just because there's miracles does not mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. It just simply means that a miracle happened, whatever. That's just all there's to it. So, I hate to spoil it for you. But.
George Hall writes, Moses was doing something different to the Egyptian wizards. They were picking theirs up by a third of the way down from the head. Those were real snakes to begin with. That's funny. I don't remember the Torah ever saying that. You'll have to show me that in the Torah. What verse says they picked it up a third of the way down from the head?
Interesting. Maybe in the Midrash or something.
Yeah, but we're not talking Midrash.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay,
most people don't understand Midrash or how it works or operates.
No, but they like to use it when they try to prove that Jesus is the Messiah, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to chuckle with that.
But that goes back to our title tonight. That's part of the parasitism of Christianity on Judaism. Anything and everything they can latch onto, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, if they think they can manipulate, twist it, or whatever to make it validate their Christian theology, they will.
Right.
They'll say, see, we've planted it in Judaism, so now that we found it in Judaism, that proves that Christianity comes from Judaism.
Right.
What? Yeah, okay. You're right.
So you mentioned Pesach. So for all you viewers out there, next week, the show for next week will be on Pesach, on Passover, / aka Easter, otherwise known as, doesn't mean it is, just saying otherwise known as Easter in the Christian Bible. And that's something, if you are a Christian, you're definitely going to want to tune into this, because there's going to be some things that's really going to upset your understanding. And you need to be audited with your spiritual information. That is for certain. And I understand people don't like being audited, but that's just the way it is. It has to happen. If you don't have anything to hide, you don't have anything to worry about. That's the way I look at it. So, okay. So, any other comments that you see there? Again, the phone lines are open now. We haven't had any more calls yet. So, if they don't have any more calls, like anytime soon, we'll kind of move on with our targeted context for the show. So, okay. So, what I want to do is is answer this phone call. So, in 1 second.
Interesting.
All right. Here we go. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Hello?
Hello, you are live on the air. What's your name?
Hi, William. This is Delane.
Oh, hi, Delane. How are you?
Hi, Delane.
Hi, Rabbi. I can barely hear you guys, so...
Can you hear me and him the same, which is poorly? Or did you hear me good and him not so good? How is that working?
Both are very faint.
Interesting. Hold on. Keep talking, and I'm going to see if I can make a few adjustments on the soundboard here, okay?
Okay. I have a question I've been pondering myself, and I think it applies to your subject. But I have often wondered why Hashem has allowed this New Testament to be attached to the Hebrew Scriptures. And I think it's his plan.
Right.
I think it is definitely his plan. Since I first discovered the Bible about 1980, most of my time was spent in the prophets and the Psalms, but everything I read in the prophets, I saw the church. I did not know anything about Judaism. I didn't even know what a Jew was. But what I saw through the prophets was exactly what I was seeing in the church.
Right.
And I think this is needed to bring people to the point of learning what he wants us to learn.
Right.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
I do.
It's like, okay, go back to the tree in the midst of the garden. You have a combination of good and evil.
Okay.
And I can't hear you guys.
Can you hear us at all?
Now I heard that a little bit.
Okay. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with the soundboard. So I think there's a setting. I must have hit a wrong button at one point, and I didn't get to figure out what it was at. So, okay. So my quick...
But so anyway, I think this is part of his organized plan, just like he was behind the dividing of the 12 tribes.
Okay.
He brings about perfection by dividing.
Gotcha.
You know,
Right.
it's constantly dividing to bring about those who are going to really turn back to him.
Well, Deuteronomy 13, we just talked about it. It says the Lord your God will test you. It's a test to see if you will cling to him, or if you will follow these other teachings.
I can't understand what
That's
you're
okay.
saying.
That's okay. You'll be able to go back and watch it on the video. It's all have a clean recording into the video. I don't know what's wrong with the phone line. So, okay. Thank you, Delane. I appreciate your call. And
Okay.
Okay.
It's just something to consider.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate talking to you. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Rabbi, if you got something to say on that, go for it. I'm going to see if I can check the soundboard real fast.
Well, I go ahead and check it, but you're going to have to quickly tell me what she said.
Oh, you couldn't hear her either?
I could hear her, but I'm not quite sure about what she was saying. Let me put it that way.
I think she was more making a declaration that, well, she did mention, she goes, I wonder why God has allowed the New Testament to be there. But then she followed up by saying she also thinks it is probably something that God put into place as a tool to basically, stir up things or whatever, to kind of jar out the ones and whatever case may be. So it was kind of like a conversation piece more than it was an outside question or an inside question, so to speak.
All right. Well, let me say the following. Okay.
Yes.
If a person subscribes to the idea that God is in control of everything and that there is absolutely nothing that happens that isn't the will of God to happen, okay, then it becomes problematic why there are other religions besides Judaism. God should be able to say, everybody's going to become a Jew and that's the end of it. Okay, but that's not what happened, and that's not what we're dealing with. Okay. The Jews don't necessarily always present themselves well, and they don't always do a good job when they present themselves. And so I think it was Rambam. I can't remember who it was offhand right now, but one of the rabbis, famous rabbis from tradition, 1,000 years ago, whatever, said that one of the reasons why Christianity is out there is because Christianity did a very good job making Gentiles respect the Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures. Because Christianity, in their mind, is based on the Hebrew Scriptures, derived from the Hebrew Scriptures, is the precursor or supposed to be what leads people to Jesus, okay, they have to continue to keep the Hebrew Scriptures in with their Bible to show that Jesus did in fact fulfill what's in the Hebrew Scriptures. Okay, you can't say Jesus fulfilled Scripture, namely the Hebrew Scriptures, without including the Hebrew Scriptures. So the rabbis that I'm talking about said that Christianity went a long way in making the world recognize that there is truth in the Hebrew Scriptures that will make them easier to come to God. Okay, that because they will have taught to recognize the worth, so to speak, of the Hebrew Scriptures, it will bring them closer to God and make it easier for them to come all the way to God, instead of their Trinity or their idolatry.
Right.
But at least they've been shown how to respect the Tanakh. Okay, so to answer her question, why did God allow the New Testament? Assuming that you believe that everything happens at the will of God, okay, then the reason is because the Christian community has done a pretty good job of bringing a good chunk of the world to respect the Hebrew Scriptures. So it's like a step in the right direction from idolatry, from other idolatry and paganism. Instead of worshiping 300 gods, okay, they've narrowed it down to only 3. How's that?
I guess
Okay.
you could call
All
that
right.
a
Now,
benefit. Okay.
For those who don't necessarily see God as completely, utterly, and totally controlling and manipulating everything, and we're just nothing but puppets on a string, those who believe fully in the existence of free will, okay, God may not like the New Testament, but he's not going to oppose the free will of the heathen community that elevated the New Testament and tacked it on, made it an appendix to the true Word of God in the Hebrew Scriptures. Because if God did, there would go free will. Okay. Some would believe that God said to the human beings, "Here's the world I created. That I created. Okay, you're either going to nurture it and treat it right, or you're going to be, out of luck, no food, you're going to die off. Up to you." Okay, I mean, there's numerous ways to look at things like this. One of which is that God allowed it to occur because it's introducing a healthy chunk of the planet to the idea of God and to the commandments of God, and to get away from idolatry. And it, brings them a step closer. Like I said, instead of 3,000 gods, they have only 3. They're Trinity. Okay, step in the right direction. Another answer one could give is free will. People had the free will to choose to Christologize the Hebrew Scriptures, pervert its meaning, whatever, and, God allowed it to happen because otherwise to do so interferes with free will. That's how I would answer her question.
Gotcha.
That's how I would respond to what she said.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So we're going to make this the final topic, which is probably going to take a little while. And so the timeline. I want to do a quick timeline. Like I said, it doesn't have to be all inclusive, but just roughly from the end of Tanakh to the process of the New Testament, in the sense of the gap. Most people know there's about 450 years gap between Malachi and the New Testament's beginning, so to speak. But just to cover, some things that a lot of our viewers already know, but some people will be tuning in for the first time who don't know. And my goal is to make sure that every viewer knows the history of the New Testament and how and when it was written, in contrast to the Tanakh. Yes.
Okay, and there are a lot of Christian scholars who debate this, so there's not
cut and dry.
Cut and dried.
Right.
Okay.
We can cover the basics.
There's a period of time called the intertestamental period. This is the pages that go in between the Hebrew Scriptures and in the Christian rendition, Malachi, and followed by Matthew. Okay, there were texts produced by the religious community, Jewish or otherwise, and they were what we call pseudepigraphic or pseudepigrapha.
Right.
Pseudo, fake, and epigraph meaning name. So I've said this before on the air, but if a person writes a book, if I write a book, nobody's going to care that Stuart Federow wrote a book.
I do.
But if I say, oh, I'm not the one who wrote it.
Yeah.
This was written by Enoch. Okay. The Bible says of Enoch that he came, walked with God. It never said he died. So he would have access to some really good information that Stuart Federow's not going to have. In other words, by claiming the book I wrote was actually written by Enoch, it gives credibility and more believability to that text than if it was only written by a Stuart Federow.
Right.
These books were rejected from being part of the Bible because they were written not in the language of Hebrew. They were written either in the language, usually in Greek. Okay. Other languages are possible. I don't remember all of the languages that they're written in, but they weren't the right period of time. Judaism has a belief that that prophecy ended when the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of God,
right,
left Israel along with the Jews at the Babylonian exile. Now you have some post-exile books that were written because they reflected the sentiment and the theology of why they were kicked out of exiled from the Promised Land. Okay, and from the moment that Ezra and Nehemiah come back to the Promised Land and they start reading and interpreting from the Torah, which is what it says in those books. Okay, now you have revelation from God not coming through prophecy, but rather through biblical study and interpretation. Okay, and the study of the oral tradition. Okay, so these texts were rejected as being part of the Bible by the Jewish community. The Roman Catholic Church, by the way, make them a part of their Bible. So it'll have the Hebrew Scriptures, the Apocrypha, which is their name for these, some, not all, but some of these books that they accepted as Holy Writ, and then it'll be followed by the New Testament. So there's a period of time in between the Hebrew Scriptures and the New Testament where these books were written, but the Jewish community rejected them. Okay, you've got basically Jesus comes on the scene, and he dies, give or take, 33, in the year 33, give or take. Okay. The followers of Jesus think he's going to be the Jewish Messiah with all the definitions of what a Jewish Messiah is supposed to do. Oops, he died on the cross. Now we got a choice. We can either give up and say, oops, we backed the wrong guy. He wasn't really the Messiah we thought he was going to be. Or they can redefine the term Messiah to fit what Jesus actually did. Okay, they can take the idea of he died, so we shouldn't believe he was the Messiah anymore, and make it to where the fact he had to die for our sins.
Right.
Okay. All right. So which is really the earliest invention of Christianity. Okay. Eventually, those people who were followers of Jesus started writing down their stories. Most likely not in Hebrew, because Hebrew was not the lingua franca of the day. It wasn't the what's it called? The publicly spoken language. The publicly spoken languages were probably Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. Okay. So you've got all these sources, the gospel according to William, the gospel according to Stuart, the gospel according to Bill, the gospel according to Jones, whatever. And then you also have these pieces of writings, okay, which are letters that Paul wrote to the already existing Christian communities in the Mediterranean world. So he writes a letter to Corinth, okay, and a second letter to Corinth, which becomes 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Okay, he writes to the Christian community in Galatia, which becomes Galatians. Okay, he writes to the Christian community of Thessalonia, which becomes Thessalonians. Okay, those letters were collected and preserved before the Gospels were written down. Before you had the Gospels, even though they come first, you had the epistles, the letters of Paul to these Christian communities in the Mediterranean world. Okay, this is, by the way, comparable in the Hebrew Scriptures, because our Hebrew Scriptures have an order, even in the Hebrew Scriptures order, the Jewish order of things. We know that King David wrote at least some, if not most, if not all, of the Psalms, right?
Okay.
So you've got Samuel, okay, 1 Kings, which is where it talks about David, Solomon, okay, but the Psalms are in, the last third of the book of the Bible. They're in the writings, not in the prophet section. So that's like an example of things not exactly in chronological order, because, why would they be?
Right.
Well, the same thing in the New Testament. Now, there's a belief, by the way, that there was a single document called the Q document. I forgot what that Q stands for. There's a name. I can't remember what it is. And that became the basis for Mark, but Matthew and Luke already also knew about it, and they took some of their stories, so it's like a common source for Mark, Matthew, and Luke. Synoptic Gospels is the word referring to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the first three in the order of the New Testament, because they're very, very similar. Synoptic, fitting to be seen together. The same visually, synoptic, synonym, optic. Okay. And then you have John, who has had this much more mystical view of Christian theology. Eventually, somebody named Mark is attributed to writing it all down and collecting these stories. Somebody named Matthew is given the there it is. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Of being the author of the book of Matthew, but he's getting some of his stories from Mark and some of his stories from the Q document.
Right.
Okay. By the way, I always thought that it was John, but Luke has a very, very interesting, very, very beginning to his his
entry.
Okay. For as much as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of those things which are most surely believed among us, even as they delivered them unto us, which from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word, it seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all these things from the very first, to write unto thee in order, most excellent Theophilus. That's who he's writing the book of Luke to. He never says, I'm a witness to these things.
Right.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it's the Gospel of John, okay, who says near the end, this is the, let's see.
What is the...
This is the disciple which testifies of these things and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. So John is already admitting, I never knew this Jesus guy. I'm going by a disciple, and we know his testimony is true, so I'm telling you what this disciple testified to.
Oh, right. That's a good point. Yeah.
John 21, verse 24 and following. Okay.
Right.
So that's 2 out of 4 that are saying we never knew this guy named Jesus.
And let's talk about another couple didn't knows. Like Paul didn't know of a virgin birth. I don't think Jesus did either, because he never mentioned it once. I mean, I know it sounds really funny, but I'm dead serious.
Oh, no. It's very, very serious. And we know that one of the things that motivated the authors, whoever they were, to write what they did is that they would hear of objections to a previous gospel, and so they would invent stories to answer those objections. So Mark never says anything about Jesus except he's wandering along one day, and all of a sudden John the Baptist comes up to him and says, "You're the Messiah." And as Jesus comes up out of the water after being baptized by John the Baptist, okay, a dove alights on him, and you hear a voice that says, "You're my son. You're my beloved son. With you I am well pleased," as if he's adopting him out of the clear blue sky. Jews come up, or somebody comes up to the Mark people, and they say, the Messiah is really supposed to be able to trace his lineage back through his human father, back to King David. But Mark, the only text we've got, says nothing about that. So Matthew says, I think I better invent a genealogy. Luke says, I think I better invent a genealogy, which explains why they're not the same genealogy. Genealogy.
Okay. Let's stick there for a minute. Zoom in.
Okay.
Why do you suppose that some say that one is Mary's genealogy, the other one is Joseph's genealogy, but then again you have the situation where Jesus it would make no point to bring up Joseph's genealogy. So if they're both Mary's or if they're both Joseph's, they don't match. They contradict each other. Comment on that whole thing.
Here's the thing. Okay, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have Mary as a virgin because the birth of a child from a god with a virgin is a Perseus. Okay,
Thor.
How did Perseus get married? How did Perseus's mother become pregnant with Perseus? Okay, Perseus's mother was a human. And Zeus made her pregnant, and now I forgot exactly how it was done. Okay. Is that the one who was golden shower? There was a shower of gold that made her pregnant? Not the act of sex, so she's still a virgin.
Right.
Okay. It's either Hercules, Dionysus, or Perseus. It's one of those three. Their mother, who's a human, became pregnant from Zeus by a shower of gold. Okay, which means no sex, which means still a virgin, and all of a sudden it's a virgin birth. Virgin births were very common in the ancient pagan idolatrous world. Okay.
And so was the death and resurrection also of the Son, right?
And so was death and resurrection.
Right.
So was eating the God to get your God inside you by eating his symbol or his flesh and blood. There's tons of stuff. Okay, so the point is that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're trying to make Mary a virgin who gave birth to Jesus, but Jesus needs a genealogy, so they're going to make that genealogy through his father, okay, of Joseph, even though Joseph didn't have sex with Mary, to make Jesus.
Right.
So, got to come up with a genealogy, bring it down to Joseph, and that's why Matthew says, and Joseph, the husband of Mary, whom Jesus was born to. Okay, so not saying that Joseph was the father of Jesus, but Jesus was born to Mary, okay, and Joseph was just this, like, husband of Mary. Okay. By the way, they'll also say that Luke was the genealogy for Mary, but it never says that.
Right.
Okay. Joseph being the father of Jesus, as it was supposed.
Okay, on this genealogy, I need you to tell the viewers, and again, I understand most of the viewers already know this, but some of them don't. Why is it important for a genealogy to be present whenever we're talking about Moshiach or Melech, a king or a Messiah? Why?
Okay.
What's the point? Why is it necessary?
Well, there's a double point there. Okay, for kings, they have to be from the tribe of Judah and be able to trace their lineage back to King David. The promise is made to King David that from your body will come forth all of the kings of Egypt. Why do I do that? It's because it's late and I'm sleepy tired. Okay, that's my excuse.
You're good.
Thank you.
You're good.
So they're trying to show that Jesus is. Now I forgot my point because I always go for the joke, William. Every time I do, it makes me lose my place.
That's okay.
Okay. What did you just ask me?
So what's the point? Why is there a need for a genealogy for a king or priest?
Right. The biblical text says that the kings will come forth from King David, from his body, which means biological ancestry through the father's father, all the way back through King Solomon, back to King David. Okay, so to be a king, you got to have the genealogy. You got to have the lineage.
Right.
Okay, what the Israelis call the yichus. Okay, the connection, the connection. Okay. Another reason is because, that is the reason, frankly.
And so
to me, the Messiah means you're going to be a ruler. You're going to be sitting on the throne of David. Okay. And you therefore have to be able to trace your lineage back to King David. It's that simple.
And as a priest, the same thing. You have to be not only a Levite, but you have to come from a specific family.
Right, which is Aaron. So Aaron and Moses were brothers.
And so for the Christians who are watching this, you should be really troubled right now because Jesus doesn't come from either one, according to Christianity. He has no paternal lineage. He only has a maternal. Okay, so that should be very troubling.
His father was God, therefore Jesus can't trace his lineage to Joseph. Why bother, as you said earlier, a minute ago? Why bother even including the genealogies going down to Joseph because Joseph wasn't and they'll say, oh, he was adopted. Well, first of all, pretty sure it's Samuel. It says that it has to come forth from your body.
Right.
So you can't be adopted into the king's line.
Right.
Okay, the royal line. And it says, look, I can't be the king of England. Why can I not be the king of England? Because I don't have the genealogy, the lineage to be the king of England. The next person in line to be king of England is Charles. If Charles abdicates the throne, it doesn't go to his brother. It goes to his firstborn son, Edward.
Right.
I think that's right.
That's great.
That's cool. Same thing with Jesus.
Good examples, by the way. Good examples.
That's the one I always use. And I've used it here on Tanakh Talk. The Luke genealogy has King David's son, in the genealogy is Nathan, the brother of Solomon, and that's a mistake because the king has to be from the right son of David, the son of Solomon. It can't be the brother of Solomon.
Right.
It's got to be back through Solomon to King David, not through Nathan, the brother of Solomon, to King David. So, oops there. That means the Luke genealogy proves he can't be the Messiah.
Right. Okay, so now I'm going to cut it off right now, but because
we're
leaving it on such a juicy topic, the bait for next week is a continuation of tonight because yes, it is. But in general, listen, let me finish talking. It is. It's directly
the basic topic for tonight.
It's directly connected to the oops problem here, right? Yeah. This is where we're leaving it, and we're going to pick this up next week with the Easter Passover problem. Okay.
Yes, the title is "Was the Last Supper of Jesus a Passover Seder?"
Love it.
And the answer is it couldn't have been. We'll explain why next week.
Very good. It's been fun. It's always fun.
It's always fun.
Yes, indeed.
Just you and me sitting around talking.
I'm digging it. For sure. So thank you for all the viewers out there. We had I think we're the number of live viewers as opposed to dead ones are increasing weekly, and I think that's really awesome. This show, I think, is reaching a lot of people, and Baruch Hashem for that. So thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, for the juicy topic you don't want to miss, right? So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, you should do so, and click the notifications bell next to it to be sure to turn on the notifications. And also, if you would like to help me finance the new Tanakh Talk studio building, contact me or go to the website. Look for the PayPal button at the bottom or the donate button at the top. And you can,
even if you cannot donate massive numbers, donate to Tanakh Talk to make sure we can stay on the air.
Yes, amen. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, all the viewers. Love you guys. And yeah, I like the videos too. Shalom, everybody. Shalom, Rabbi. Love you guys.
See you later.
All right, take care.
Love you.
I gotta find my mouse. There we go.
נזכור בסוף בסוף כולנו שותפים חשוב תמיד להיות אנושיים חושבים דוברים לובשים בכל האופנים זה פניהם של אנשים שונים נזכור בסוף בסוף כולנו שותפים חשוב תמיד להיות אנושיים אני אתם תמיד כולם ביחד חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד איפוק זו העוצמה ויתור זו הגדולה שאיפה